Whether we like it or not, the police play an essential role in keeping our communities safe. Or so that's the idea. And sure, many cops out there do plenty of good. But every now and then, the 5-0 can get up to some pretty stupid things. Things that have even occasionally resulted in them getting arrested. From chasing pigs and stuffing donkeys in their cars to somehow getting stuck in highly compromising positions, hop on in, because we're going downtown to check out some of the worst times the police did the stupidest things. Pokemon Patrol. Catching criminals is hard, sure, but you know what's even harder? Catching rare Pokemon on Pokemon Go. Only the LAPD administration didn't seem to appreciate this back in 2017 when 2 of their officers got caught in a wild goose chase with a Pokemon. It was an ordinary day and officers Luis Lozano and Eric Mitchell were on patrol in their cop car. Bored senseless, they decided to start playing the augmented reality smartphone app Pokemon Go. But just as their game intensified, they were called for backup due to a robbery that had just broken out at a nearby Macy's. It was then that the pair were faced with a moral dilemma. Do the sensible thing and go provide backup, or do the much more fun thing and go after the super rare Pokemon Snorlax, which had just appeared nearby. The officers proceeded to spend the following 20 minutes completely ignoring backup calls, all in pursuit of the prized Pokemon. Finally, the illustrious Snorlax was theirs, and according to official documents in celebration, Officer Mitchell said, "The guys are gonna be so jealous." But while the pair had their eyes on the prize, the all-seeing eyes and ears of the in-car camera had caught them in the act. And so, given their favoring of mobile games over saving lives, their Pokemon shenanigans would see them lose their jobs. But hey, jobs will come and go. But Snorlax? Well, that's not something you let pass you by. Wedding Crasher. Ah, don't you just love weddings? A celebration of love. 2 families becoming one. Oh, and the local policeman inviting himself so he can steal your wedding gifts. Whoa, wait. We're gonna have to rewind a little bit here. In 2015, Deputy Landon Earl Rankin retired from the Pinal County Sheriff's Office in Arizona after 21 years of service. Around the same time, he was also in the midst of a divorce, during which he took up the less than normal hobby of inviting himself to strangers' weddings so he could apparently listen to their vows. But he wasn't just yearning for the love he no longer had. He was pursuing a strange kind of jealous punishment upon the newlyweds. While attending these weddings uninvited, the 54-year-old would seemingly get sticky fingers, stealing gifts, wedding cards, and their contents, resulting in him pocketing approximately $3,000 from each couple. But in April 2022, Landon would crash his last wedding. After a wedding card box contained potentially $6,000 went walkabouts, the police began to investigate and eventually uncovered a whole chain of similar thefts that occurred in nearby areas. As they checked out surveillance footage, all of the wedding thefts seemed to have one common denominator: Landon. In fact, they actually traced 11 wedding thefts back to him in total. Not only that, but once taken in and tested, let's just say that Landon's system wasn't exactly clean of the odd narcotic or two. Meaning the former deputy not only faced burglary charges, but drug charges too. While his motives behind this descent into crime isn't fully known, what I really want to know is, how did 11 plus couples not realize that there was a complete stranger at their wedding? You're in trouble. As you've seen and will continue to see in this video, police officers have been fired for some pretty hilarious reasons, though none quite as gross as this next one. According to a story posted to lolwat.com, Orange County Deputy Sheriff Carl Brown was bursting for a pee while using the elevator at work. However, rather than waiting until he could get to a restroom, the cop decided, well, to do his business right then and there. After the stench of pee was presumably noticed and the surveillance footage was checked, Deputy Brown was confronted, for which he explained he had an alleged medical condition whereby he literally couldn't hold his pee for extended periods. In fact, he even admitted to having used the elevator to go tinkle on 5 separate occasions. As you can imagine, Brown's boss had to have a very interesting chat with him and ultimately dismissed him from his role. But come on. If it's such a big deal, then they really should mention it during the first day orientation. Piggy in the middle. This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. And this little piggy went wee 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 as the Pensacola Police Department chased it around for an hour. Okay, so that's not exactly how the nursery rhyme goes, but it's how things went in 2021 when officers found a potbelly pig trotting downtown in Pensacola, Florida. With this babe being in the big city, they feared he would get hit by a car. Backup was called, and all in all, 5 cops and 2 animal control officers made fools of themselves as they slid and skid through the street trying to save this oinker's bacon. Yep, the piggies with badges were chasing a real pig on this occasion.
Yeah, I definitely smell a pork product of some type.
However, the 5-0 were no match for the pig's little trotters. In fact, surprisingly, potbelly pigs can actually reach speeds of up to 16 miles per hour, especially when they're running from the law. However, after an hour of chaos, the pig's jig was up as one officer managed to tackle him to the floor. Afterwards, the pig was taken into custody and sent for mugshots. Okay, so maybe that mugshot part didn't happen, but a spokesperson for the police department explained how the mischievous pig was kept in protective custody while they attempted to find its owner. Let's just hope they can afford bail after this bacon-on-bacon action. Officer Sleazeball. It may or may not surprise you, but around 50% of marriages end in divorce. And as many as 40% of those divorces are a result of infidelity. And sure, with infidelity, there are the classic signs to look out for in your spouse. Long work trips, them hiding their phone, but this next woman found out the truth in perhaps one of the most unexpected ways possible. In 2018, a policeman's wife was innocently perusing the streets of Tamaulipas in Mexico using Google Earth. Out of curiosity, she decided to check out the police station where her husband worked as an officer. And let's just say that curiosity did, in fact, kill the cats, as what she found was her husband in a romantic embrace with some hussy on the streets. Yep, it seemed Google had exposed Officer Sleazeball's makeout spot for all the world and his wife to see. And despite the low quality of the image, for his wife, there was no mistaking him. But even with the satellite evidence stacked against him, he maintained his innocence, though it didn't stop his wife filing for divorce. And I get it, getting caught by Google Earth is mind-blowingly unlucky. But having extramarital affairs on the street, well, it doesn't seem like this officer was that concerned about privacy in the first place anyway. I always make sure to keep my extramarital affairs top secret. Oh, sweetie, if you're watching, that was just a joke. I swear. Jay Trotting. From armed robberies to murders, the police have to undergo serious training to deal with extreme crimes. Yet one call that no police officer is ever prepared for happened back in 2015. Oklahoma PD received a call from a local woman, Robin Strader, who reported that there was a donkey on the loose, aimlessly wandering around a rural road. Jay-trotting, if you will. As Officer Kyle Canan got to the scene, Robin explained she was happy for the donkey to crash at her place, only she had no way of getting him there. Which is when Officer Canan had quite possibly the worst idea and suggested they shove the donkey into the back of his police car. As you can imagine, what with police cars generally not being catered towards farm animals, it was a bit of a squash and a squeeze. So much so that they bestowed the donkey the name Squishy. And it seemed Squishy felt right at home too, as he predictably left several donkey dookies all over Officer Canan's back seat. But hey, you don't shove a donkey into the back of your 5-seat cop car and expect it to be a smooth ride now, do you? The Great Escape. This is Neil Moore. You're probably wondering how he got here. Well, he defrauded multiple organizations of nearly $2.5 million. But don't worry, he won't be here long. He's got a cunning plan. Let Operation Bust Out of Jail commence! First, he writes a letter to the prison officers, posing as the court service and instructing them to release him on bail. Then those dim-witted prison officers actually fall for it and release him into the wild, none the wiser that they've been completely duped. Impossible, I'm sure you're thinking, but I can assure you this actually happened at Wandsworth Prison in London back in 2015. Being a well-seasoned fraudster, it's no surprise that Neil Moore managed to wheedle his way out of prison thanks to a clever letter and some not-so-clever prison officers. According to The Guardian, Neil had somehow set up a website and corresponding email purporting to be the UK Prison Service. And having acquired official bail forms, he was able to adapt them for his purposes. But even having outsmarted the law, Neil's efforts proved to be pointless, as he shockingly made a U-turn and handed himself back in just 4 days later. He claimed he had a change of heart, probably having realized the harsh reality of being a fugitive. And things weren't quite as comfy when he returned to jail, as he was transferred to an extremely high-security wing of Belmarsh Prison in London, as to, not accidentally release him again. Cop copycat. They say fake it till you make it, only when it comes to being a fake cop, well, I'm afraid that's a very serious offense. Still, that didn't deter one Maryland man who managed to keep up the act for 15 years. Up until 2022, 37-year-old Antoine Tuckson was playing a gig as a fake cop, as he would patrol around Prince George's County with a vest, handgun, a taser, a fake badge, and even a dog. Which, spoiler alert, turned out to be his friend's emotional support dog. It's unclear why Tuckson maintained this act. There are no claims of him actually arresting people or giving tickets, which makes his actions seem all the more puzzling. He seemingly just liked wandering around in police garb. Either way, his pretense came to light when two women disputed their bill at a restaurant where he actually worked as a security guard. As the disagreement escalated, Antoine switched up and claimed to be a member of the U.S. Marshal Service. But when the real cops arrived, they had their suspicions about Antoine, mainly due to the fact that he'd left his dog unsupervised at the restaurant, which is apparently something that canine handlers can never do. Not sold on Antoine's charade, they investigated further and uncovered a 15-year-long hoax which, if prosecuted, could land Antoine behind bars for 13 years. Let's be real for a second. This guy's act went on for 15 years without the real cops finding out. 15 whole years. I think it's fair to say that the local cops have at least something to answer for in this situation. Not least considering the fact that Antoine was already on their radar for multiple offenses such as theft and unpermitted gun possession. Come on guys, look alive. Clumsy cops. Picture this. You're a cop and you're chasing after a criminal. Your whole career has trained you for this very moment. Ducking and diving through the streets, you finally back the criminal into a dead end. You're mine, you think to yourself, but he takes a leap over the fence. You follow. Only as you hurtle over the fence, your trousers get caught, leaving you suspended. Yep, in an image shared by the Sun newspapers in 2020, a British cop can indeed be seen caught on a fence squirming for freedom. After getting stuck, he had apparently attempted to reach for his radio to call in for backup, but dropped it, leaving himself in quite the predicament. While the outcome of this cop story remains a mystery, the article divided viewers, some expressing sympathy for the man and others claiming it's nothing but a setup. And indeed, the latter theory may not be quite as odd as it seems. Elsewhere in the UK, a similar occurrence seemed to happen to another cop in 2021. Only this time, the cop found himself and his not-so-whitey tighties exposed. Strung by the feet with skids for all to see, the officer cried for help, though his cries proved in vain, as locals took to laughing and taking videos instead. Naturally, the photos and videos made their rounds on the internet, not exactly leaving the best impression of the British police force. But before we judge those British bobbies, there's a valid explanation, which could also explain the first stuck cop we saw. Yep, I hate to break it to you, but this latter incident was all just an elaborate prank by a guy called Lee Marshall. He and his merry men often play dress up as policemen and carry out hilarious pranks on the public where they show the police in the most embarrassing situations. So while I'm sure we'd all love for this to be real, I'm afraid it's not. As for the skid marks, well, I neither confirm nor deny their legitimacy. What I can confirm, however, is that if you subscribe to the channel and ring that bell icon, you will be amazed on the reg. What more could you want? Now let's get back to some pea-brain police officers. Pure evil. Tattoos are a great way to express yourself, whether it's showing individuality or proving your undying love for a girlfriend who will inevitably cheat on you with the UPS guy and move to Canada with their new pet kitten Lord Fluffington, leaving you with not only a broken heart, but a lifelong tattoo. Screw you, Becky. Anyway, in summer 2022, Eric Wada, a Cincinnati police officer, decided he would get a new tattoo. A tattoo that would result in him being fired after 16 years of service. How come? Well, according to the Cincinnati Police Department, the phrase pure evil tattooed across his knuckles didn't promote the professional and neutral image of the department. And you can see where they're coming from. A lot of people already have a negative opinion of the police, and a tattoo like this doesn't exactly help. They did, however, give him the option to laser remove the tattoo, but this bad-to-the-bone officer refused, claiming the tattoo had a personal meaning for him. According to Eric, his tattoo was intended to be a thought-provoking commentary on what it means to be pure or evil. Yeah, but really, I think we can agree that what it really is a big red flag to avoid this guy at all costs, and a sign that he no longer being a cop is probably for the best. Parking wars. As we know by now, the police don't always follow the rules. And when it comes to parking, well, they're guilty as charged. In fact, in the UK, the Lincolnshire police have come under fire after being spotted numerous times parked in illegal spots, namely disabled parking bays. One local woman of the area shared how she once saw them park in a disability spot even though there were plenty of normal spaces available. Triggered by this, she branded the police as being lazy and guilty of taking spaces from more deserving people. In this particular case, it's not known whether the officers were on duty or not, though the department claims that if the officers were carrying out an arrest, the extra room in the disabled bay would make it easier for them to get someone in the car without damaging neighboring vehicles. So it looks like the jury's out on this one, but I wouldn't hold out hope for the cops. All around the world, cops have been seen in hilariously bad parking situations, like this guy who forgot that heavy motorcycles don't always park up too nicely on soft grassy soil. And demonstrating their professionalism even further, there's his officer pal snapping a pic for good measure. With that kind of parking, it's probably best for you and your car if you give the police plenty of space. You didn't get my good side. When catching criminals, a well-drawn suspect sketch can be the difference between success and failure. And thanks to new digital technologies, these portraits are only getting more and more realistic. Or so at least that's the idea. In 2018, the Warwickshire Police Department in the UK were attempting to track down a man who'd been involved in a robbery. He and some other men had entered a woman's house under false pretenses in order to rob her. After reporting them to the police, the woman gave a description of one of the men, which resulted in, probably not his best side. Still, the police seriously released this image, and oh, how the internet collectively laughed. But it really does bring to question just how smart the police's suspect identifying technology really is. But that wasn't the only hysterical police sketch to have emerged. Just check out this one from 2018. Though, just for the record, this one actually worked in helping to find the suspect, a 44-year-old thief, Hing Phuoc Nguyen. I mean, I can't lie, the resemblance is weirdly uncanny. Where's my weapon? With great power comes great responsibility, which is something the police should know more than anyone. Though it seems sometimes they can be guilty of letting their guard down. I mean, just check out this photo of a South African police officer who appears to just be sat texting away, all the while her Vector R4 rifle is just casually laying behind her, completely out of sight. She's not the only one either, only this next cop's gun was so out of sight that it was quite literally where the sun don't shine, being used as a makeshift human kickstand. Doesn't get much dumber than the old shotgun butt stance, but while we're on the topic, check out this Indian cop who was snapped having a good old scratch of the same bodily area using a stick. Doesn't exactly fill you with confidence about the hygiene and brains of the popo, but I guess I'd prefer the stick butt cop than old Shotgun McGee. Under no cover cop. When the weekend arrives, we all want to have fun and let our hair down. Only one police officer let it a bit too much down when he visited the Discovery nightclub in Little Rock, Arkansas in 2019. The drinks were flowing, the music was blasting, and a highly intoxicated off-duty officer, Sabron Hackett, was dominating the dance floor. The cops popping and locking soon resulted in his clothes dropping, as reportedly the sweet rhythms of Don't Stop Believing by Journey enticed him to strip butt naked in front of the whole club. As the officer whipped out his weapon of mass seduction, the people whipped out their phones and captured the moment, which was soon posted online. The officer, who worked for Conway Police Department, was soon escorted out of the club by security and taken to Conway Station where his car was parked. He then drove himself home worryingly, presumably still intoxicated. In the end, he wasn't charged with any crimes, though he was suspended without pay for 30 days as the chief described his actions as embarrassing. Hey, there's nothing embarrassing about getting naked and dancing to dad rock. It's what I do in the mirror every morning. Prison break. Believe it or not, in Thailand, trafficking naughty substances is seen as such a serious crime that it can actually result in the death penalty. And when 23-year-old Thai man Anand Kamalawanich was accused of it back in 2018, he knew his neck was on the line. So it was just as well that this jailbird had hatched a cunning plan. It was simple, really. Anand started by beckoning over an officer, claiming he'd seen a snake in his cell. The officer then entered the cell to search for the snake, but made the fatal error of leaving the door slightly open. Like a speeding bullet, Anand leapt through the door and locked the foolish officer on the other side. The plan had come together perfectly. Anand was now fugitive, out on the run, only just 5 short hours later, a local tipped off the police to his whereabouts and Anand found himself back behind bars. And as if being suspected of drug trafficking wasn't enough, he now faced further charges for that funny little prank locking an officer in a jail cell and running away. At least I hope for his sake the Thai judicial system sees the funny side. Officer OnlyFans. Figures show that around 25% of men will see visible signs of hair loss before the tender age of 30. No, this isn't a sponsored ad segment, but this issue is especially daunting for a lot of men, which resulted in over 730,000 surgical hair procedures worldwide in 2019. However, this can cost a pretty penny or two, which is where the next story comes in. With a withered and wilted hairline, 25-year-old UK police officer Harry Edwards was desperate for a hair transplant. The only problem being that his salary didn't quite cut it, meaning as he saw it, there was only one way to fund his new do: OnlyFans. Yep, under the alias of Brett Hunter, the officer would sell explicit pictures of himself and put the proceeds in his hair transplant piggy bank. Charging $3 for a subscription, the stud managed to make a grand total of $62 before a friend apparently somehow came across the content and tipped him off to his superiors. Yeah, I think there's a couple of reasons why these guys are never going to be able to look each other in the eyes again. The end of this saucy saga resulted in Harry being accused of gross misconduct for his undeclared OnlyFans, but he beat the PD to the punch as he resigned in September 2021. He claims to be embarrassed by the whole ordeal and says it has not only ruined his career, but strained personal relationships. But hey, $62, right? That ought to cover a hair transplant. Oh dear. Well, seems those cops aren't so innocent themselves. But which shocked you the most? Let me know down in the comments below, and thanks for watching.